What's up, everyone? It is Richie here from the F1 Podcast, Season 5, Episode 28. Recording this on Sunday morning, right before the US Grand Prix. We got a couple of hours until uh, this weekend's race, but I feel like there was so much news to talk about.
hmm
We want to catch up before this afternoon's race. I'm here with Andrew Cleary. Andrew, glad to have you back. Glad to have power back for you. We were supposed to
Yeah.
record this morning. And I guess we forgot about our cowboy hats. The only thing I have wearing is my Bryce Canyon shirt on, closest to, I guess, Texas.
Also, my
But
cowboy hat's downstairs.
it's good to see you. How are you doing, man?
Good. Oh, by the way, Richie, you're only allowed to ask one question this
What?
interview, okay? One,
Just one question?
Ted Kravitz only allowed to ask one question. No follow-up questions, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm done. So that's the question. How can I go through this whole podcast episode without a question? All right,
Exactly.
we're gonna fail. I'm fail. We weren't able to do an episode during the week, but there was a lot of news that kind of swirled in leading into the United States Grand Prix that is in the Circuit of Americas in Austin, Texas.
Mhm.
But let's start with just the more pressing news that came earlier in the week is two more driver spots have been filled. It is announced that Mercedes has signed George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. There was discussion if George was going to go to Red Bull or Max Verstappen's going to come to Mercedes. We really weren't too sure. We're kind of, well, actually, we knew Max was staying, but we were wondering where would George Russell go. And so I'm just going to read a little things from the press release. Russell and Antonelli, who are both products of the team's junior program, have guided the Silver Arrows to P2 in the team's championship with 6 race weekends to go. Russell was promoted to the works in 2022 after 3 years at a Williams and has clinched 5 Grand Prix wins, the latest which came out in Singapore. And also, rookie Kimi Antonelli, while this is his first official year, he had some big peaks this year, including sprint pole in Miami, a podium in Canada where he became the youngest podium finisher in F1 history. He did have a bit of a difficult time in the last couple of European races, so he's hoping for a strong finish. He had two top finishes in Baku and Singapore. Mercedes moved to wanted to confirm these drivers as soon as possible, but obviously there were some negotiations. Confirming our driver lineup was always just a matter of when, not if, which I think is pretty interesting. We wanted to take our time, handle the negotiations properly, and make sure everyone on all sides was happy. Our focus is now on the final 6 races of the year as we fight for second in the constructors. And it's interesting. Let's now talk about this. Mercedes has been recently, a team to kind of watch in the last couple of races. We've talked about how George Russell winning in Singapore, winning in Canada. He's somehow able to get up there and, avoid all the carnage that might be happening. But I guess I'm now going to use this question. Andrew, what were you thinking? What did you think of the signings this week for Mercedes?
I think it was pretty much standard quo for Mercedes, to be honest with you. I didn't see a reason why not to have George back. Yeah, I know there was talks about if Max went to Mercedes, but when he confirmed with Red Bull this year, to me, it makes the most sense to have George back on the team. Kimi, yeah, he's had a little bit of a rough go at it, but again, he's a rookie. And I appreciate Mercedes being able to overlook some of his rookie mistakes and keeping him on. And it just goes to show how well the junior driver program is doing then for Mercedes, being able to bring them through the ranks. And now they have two solid drivers for next season in a time when new regulations come up. So who knows how next year will go for them? They could bode very well if it's an engine battle. Mercedes typically wins those, right? So very exciting to see what's going to happen in Mercedes for 2026. I think Mercedes fans are pretty excited about these decisions to keep on. And to be honest with you, based on who's available right now, I don't think there's really anybody better to bring in than, re-signing your two drivers, to be honest with you.
And might as well just continue to go with consistency in the sense of like you have George Russell, who's been a proven driver in the last couple of years, and he's built under the junior program of Mercedes with the Williams connection. Also Antonelli, if I can just say this, obviously a lot to learn this year, and there's been some highs and lows, but like, why not continue with that? He says, I'm super excited to be continuing with the team. I've learned so much in my first season in F1, both the good moments and the more challenging ones. Those have all made me stronger, not as a driver, but as a teammate too. I want to say thank you to Toto and everyone at the factory for their continued support and faith in me. And I think that is going to be very important. Go ahead, sorry.
I think stability is a really key important going into
Exactly.
2026 with the new regulations, right? We're seeing with Red Bull and how the second street is just absolute chaos and turmoil,
Hmm.
right? And it's good to have that stability moving forward, I think, and it's going to be key for the regs next season. If you can control one thing, is that maintaining your drivers market, especially if they're going to be, because once you have you're not having to worry about bringing somebody else in on the team, getting to understand the factory, getting to understand how the ins and outs of a team works, and then having to deal with the new regulations is just so much work that would have to go into bringing on a new driver. So I'm thinking, keep the drivers the same, then you everyone can be on the same page going into next season at Mercedes.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth, and I think that's definitely for a team like that. I get that they probably want to go farther in the sense in the longevity. Now that we notice, well, maybe not so much Red Bull has been struggling, or it's the second seat, yes, but going into a year like next year where everyone is kind of on the same fields to a certain extent, it's going to be important to have some sort of stability. And
Mhm.
we just to break segue into that, that leaves now just four seats remaining on the grid, one at Red Bull, two at Racing Bulls, and one at Alpine. They're suggesting that Isaac Hadjar is the leading contender to become Max Verstappen's teammate. And so then there's a fight between Yuki and Liam Lawson for the remaining Red Bull seats. And that Arvin Lindbald, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, is favorite to be promoted into one of the Red Bull seats. So,
I
and go
I
ahead.
could what I'm seeing is that with the four left, I could really see. I don't think Colapinto is going to come back next year. I really don't. If you looked at his sprint yesterday, he was awful.
Yeah.
Behind Hulkenberg, especially at the restart and everything like that, from a guy who got in, that crashed into turn one, right? But yeah, Colapinto hasn't done anything this season. Hasn't scored a single point. I don't see him coming back. What I do seeing though is if Lindblad's going to get promoted, one of those three drivers, either um, Yuki, Liam, or Hadger, unlikely Hadger, is going to go to Alpine. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if Yuki ended up going to Alpine. I know maybe a little bit of a hot take here, but the thing is that him and Pierre have such a good working relationship that I think it would be smart for Alpine to try and sign Yuki. And Yuki needs to get out of the Red Bull program, in my opinion. It's kind of hit a wall for him, and I think he needs to take advantage of being able to go into a fresh environment. And as much as we said stability is important, I do think though if you can bring in somebody that works well with Pierre, that would work very well for Alpine going into next season.
Yeah, that is a hot take because I never really would think of it from that perspective. I would think of it, it would be a demotion to go from Red Bull to Alpine. Having said that, you would hope that the regulations make everyone a little bit more fairer when it comes to racing. But yeah, if you've not been having good success in that second Red Bull seat and, just the history of Danny Kiev, I'm gonna Mark
Like
Webber,
Ricardo, like you know what I
Ricardo.
mean.
The list can go on. Sergio Perez to a certain extent. Well, I think he was probably one of the better ones in the recent years. But yes, that is definitely a possibility. And I think that would kind of be a hot take kind of going into the next couple of weeks if they've decided to sign. We're also filming this before the race, so I don't know if there's any going to be any news that comes out to that. But can we segue to the next subject, which is probably a bit more controversial per se? So it's official. Formula One has announced a 5-year partnership with Apple to become the sport's exclusive, let's be clear, US broadcast partner from 2026, bringing together two global brands with a shared passion for innovation, excellence, entertainment. I'm just reading that press release here. Um, F1, the movie has grossed nearly $630 million globally to date, making it the most successful sports in history. So Apple's invested significantly in the project and worked with the F1 community in collaboration for 30 years to develop an authentic and immersive racing movie for new and established fans. So I'm just going to read a couple more segues here. In addition to show F1 on Apple TV, Apple will amplify the sports across Apple News, Apple Maps, Apple Music, Apple Sports, Apple Fitness. Does anyone still have Blackberries anymore? F1 TV Premium, F1 own premier content offering will continue to be available in the US via an Apple TV subscription only, and it will be free for those who subscribe. So basically, if I'm understanding this, that if you have F1 TV Premium and you're paying the F1 TV Premium directly to F1, if I'm understanding, come next year, you're gonna have to buy an Apple TV
Subscription.
subscription, which
But
will be
which
included
is
with it.
cheap? But which is cheaper though, was the question.
I don't know. Someone has to put in the segue comment.
It's an interesting deal. It's interesting to see how the success of Drive to Survive has now led to this kind of US exclusive deal for
Mhm.
Apple and how the dominoes have fallen to that point. So, kudos to them. I'm hoping that with this deal, there is new innovations that come from a viewing perspective for Apple users in the United States, or at least in the United States, and they could test it out with the technology that Apple has. I'm hoping that is the case. I'm hoping that it's just not a direct mail-in changeover, get my money sort of idea, and move on. I hope there's innovation that comes from it from a viewer perspective, especially maybe in the world of VR in that sense too.
What it's so 6 years pays more than 200 million a year. It's about $750 million for I guess the whole total. I personally, I was maybe with the success of the movie, I was expecting to be more expensive. And I'm reading this stat off Reddit, so take this for for a grain of salt. Apparently, NASCAR gets 1.1 billion a year. Again, fact check me that I don't know how accurate it is. But yeah, I've always had issues with this move to Apple services in the sense that Apple, like the subscription. We've seen this. They've tried to do this with the MLS, and I'm going to be very honest with you.
It's awful.
It's awful.
It's
And I've
awful.
not watched other than yesterday. I've watched. I guess a Toronto FC game was allowed to be on TSN. I don't know how. If I guess that was part of the partnership where some games are on Apple, some games are just like the Toronto Maple Leafs, where it's
Yeah.
Amazon Prime, Sportsnet, TSN, but every Monday's Amazon Prime. I guess they're trying to bank off the success of Drive to Survive, and like the stats are there. Like I'm not questioning the stats. Something about how 40%, 47% of new US F1 fans who've been following the sport for 5 years or less are aged 18 to 24, with over half are female, underlining the partnership of huge potential to expand the sport's younger and more diverse audience. I believe it. I just think it's also like a very expensive Formula One is not to go to anymore. Like it's just gonna make it more in demand. Like we do have some friends there at Austin. We'll segue to sprint race because we
Mhm.
obviously want to talk about the sprint race, like what happened this on Saturday. But I don't know if this drive is just gonna continue to raise prices for everything. I'm already seeing price increases for Vegas, but I don't know if they like if that's just they want to like bank on this. But also, I don't know. I just don't feel good right now with this deal personally.
I almost wonder if Apple TV is going to become a main sponsor in one of, next season's Grand Prix.
It could be, and then it's like I think I saw the F1 Sky because I was asking like, well, what's going to happen with F1 Sky? And so I think they'll still be able to do their work. So
It's a matter of the problem though is now it plants the seed for if it's just US only, when are they going to start migrating everybody over, right? I
mhm.
don't it's it's that uncertainty that kind of can be weary for everybody in that sense. And I it'll be interesting to see. I think, Rich, as you mentioned with the MLS, it's tough, right? Especially when you're wanting to watch a local team. It's
Yeah.
not available. You have to go to a streaming subscription for that. F1 TV is like, or F1 is traditionally available on TSN now, right? In Canada, that won't it matter, but like in the States, I think it was like I think it's available like on YouTube TV or NBC or whatnot. But I mean, so it'll be interesting to see what that carries over into.
Okay, so I'm gonna fact check myself before we kind of get into this. The deal that NASCAR reached with Fox, NBC, Amazon, and Warner Brothers took effect in 2025 season and will run for 7 years. The total lump sum paid by the four carriers is 7.7 billion, according to industry sources, which phases over to 1.1 per year, nearly a 40% increase over NASCAR's current deals. And that was in 2023 when they signed the thing. So,
Hmm.
so yeah, I was right to a certain extent, but just like so. I guess is that our? I think like big deal for this new broadcast, but like kind of take it like a cautious approach, and I don't know how we're gonna feel about it. Is that a safe to say? I'll wait and
I think
see.
to say that.
So let's talk Austin. Big weekend ahead in a variety of aspects. We talked about this in the episode 2 weeks ago. You had Max Verstappen. He's leading a charge to try to play spoiler in this drivers' championship. He's only a few points away. Pretty amazing qualifying for sprint. It is a very hot. F1 has determined the FIA have determined another hot circuit. So temperatures up to 41, 42
It was like
degrees.
47 degrees Celsius on the track yesterday during qualifying alone.
Not and also with the US kind of style or the Austin style, the cowboy hats are out, the outfits are out, different designs, different liveries. Um, so let's talk about sprint because I think that is where the topic of where is okay. So you have Max Verstappen coming to challenge. You have both the McLaren drivers, still trying to figure out papaya rules, don't really know. Um, then you have first lap carnage. And who is really at fault there? You mean you had Max and Oscar went to the corner deep. Oscar attempted to cut back but made contact with Nico Hulkenberg. Fighting this led to Piastri making contact with Lando Norris that put both the McLarens out of sprint race. So basically no points period. Verstappen was able to win the race easily with the number of safety cars, the number of issues that have happened. But damn, how did Leclerc not get involved in that collision is beyond me.
Well, it all started with Lando's like poor start, really. Kind of
Comes
he was
back.
slow start and then he went deep into the corner. But it's a racing incident at the end of the day because, you have four wide going into the turn one corner where Alonso or Hulkenberg was taking avoiding action on Alonso was coming on the inside. You had Lando going deep, which then Oscar tried to do the cutback move, which I think is kind of dangerous to do on turn one, knowing that there's cars around him. And then with that being the case, Hulkenberg avoids Alonso, but does not avoid Piastri. Piastri gets hit in the back, and then who then goes into Lando, and it is chaos at that point. But to be honest with you, Stewart-C is a racing incident. It is a racing incident. I mean, but it's a shitty racing incident if you are McLaren, having the fact that now you have Max Verstappen, who's already breathing down your neck, is going to secure 8 points on you regardless. And I know
Right.
it's small, but I mean, points matter at the end of the
Matter.
day, right? Every little point matters in this championship fight. And so it was kind of like, oh no, at the time, are they going to be able to get the car ready for qualifying too?
Well, let not only just talk about that, but let's talk about the yard sale that was on the track afterwards. Because you had his wheel, was it Lando's wheel ripped off, just flying off down the track. Fernando Alonso ended up with collateral damage. Hulkenberg's front wing was ripped off shortly.
It was
Lewis
tucked under
Hamilton
Sonoda's car for like 11 turns.
Lewis Hamilton was complaining that there was debris everywhere, which is why I don't understand they didn't red flag this
Oh,
session.
the poor stewards, right? They're trying to clean up the track, and guys are stumbling around trying to get every little piece before you
So
have
why not
cars
red flag
coming
it? Just red
down.
flag and just say, listen, this is well, I don't know if there's rules because of the sprint, but like, do you really want like half the sprint race to be under yellow flags and under a safety car? No.
Well, and that's the problem with this new format is that because they have to get a qualifying session done that day, I don't know if you could red flag the incident and then restart, right, based on timing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, and then with, Stroll having that crash late on Ocon, which was another just ridiculous, dumb move where he tried to go on the inside, dive
Lance
bomb,
Stroll
locked up, and
was
just
so wrong there.
annihilated Ocon from behind. I mean, like it was not even, it was just kind of like a, all right, whoops, my bad.
Yeah, and so that it's a, and then while we have some of that kerfuffle, Mr. Smooth Operator Carlos Sainz with his second podium for Williams, mind you, it is a sprint podium, but it's still a podium per se. And I think the crowd they weren't as excited with. Max and George up there. I think they were more excited that Carlos Sainz was up there.
Oh, how could you not be? It's Chili. Chili's the man.
But it was good for him, and I think good for the team. So just going on the sprint classification, you had Max Verstappen 1, George Russell 2, Carlos Sainz 3, Ferrari 4 and 5. Impressive coming from P8, P10, mind you. I think the collisions helped them there. Um,
Hamilton with a great move on Leclerc during that sprint race as well, which I thought Hamilton had a very strong drive yesterday, and Leclerc made a couple mistakes, which ended up costing him at the end of the
mhm.
day, so to speak.
Yeah, there's I think a moment they almost collided or some sort of almost collision, and then Leclerc said, "Sorry, yeah, my bad, shouldn't have done that." Alex Albon, totally forgot sleeper pick. P6 there, benefited from that craft. And I don't know if you read. I'm just reading this right now. Yuki Tsunoda was P18 in the sprint race, and he ended up P7.
Yeah, because with safety car and the collisions and everything like that, he was able to maneuver around. And then I know that him and Behrman got into a collision, or Behrman and Antonelli got into a bit of a collision, which then costed Behrman a 10-second penalty. So that's why he dropped all the way down, and Antonelli getting the eighth spot. But that on track battle right after the safety car with George and Max was really fun to watch. But George, unfortunately, trying to cut inside the corner, like the weirdest corner to cut inside too, of how sharp it is. And then he like locks up over the curb, almost takes out Max, had to take avoiding action, go all the way into the runoff area to come back. It was spicy to say the least for a guy who, says that he drives like a maniac. That was a bit of a maniac move on George.
It's interesting, like a track like Circuit of the Americas, where it is pretty open in the sense. It's not as like a tight corner like street circuits are,
But
but
it's
like
become such a great racing track. Like all the, like especially in the beginning of sector one, when you have the turn one going into the S's, and then towards the end of the lap in sector three, when we have, basically couple double left-handers, a double right-hander, a couple of chicanes. Like it's fun. It's
yeah.
a lot of fun.
I think yeah, I think that turn is into that yeah, turn one. I think being P2 is probably your best bet. Again, let's see. We'll see the carnage on the race this weekend. So yeah, while I didn't get a chance to catch all of qualifying, we'll just go quickly. Max Verstappen absolutely just destroyed the field. Purple sectors in his final Q3. Oscar Piastri struggled in a sense, and he ended up P6 for his final collision. Lando Norris is at P2. Uh, Charles Leclerc P3. George Russell P4. Lewis Hamilton P5. Kimi Antonelli P7, Ollie Behrman, impressive P8, and then Carlos Sainz continuing on a great weekend, P9, and then Fernando Alonso sitting at P10. So lots to say what's going to happen this weekend. How will Lando, I'm sorry, not this weekend, in a couple of hours. How will Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri respond? What is the papaya orders for this weekend's race?
Well, they make it out of turn one. Who knows?
Yeah, what's the over under? How many cars are going to make it out of turn one, get taken out after turn one?
I unfortunately think it's going to be a clean turn one, and
No.
everyone's going to survive. Yeah, it's going to be one of those days. We hope for some carnage.
I'm going to say two cars.
All right, two cars. All right, I'm going
Two
to say
cars.
zero.
Two cars will DNF after the first turn.
All right, I say zero cars are DNFing after the first turn.
But there's a lot. Is there anything else that we kind of want to talk about as we head into the race in a couple of hours?
No, I think we're set up for quite an interesting race today, especially at Coda. As we talked, remember we mentioned this is kind of the track that Max can really dominate at, and he's showing his mettle this weekend in terms of how well he performs at Coda. Let's see if he can convert the pole into a victory.
And just a reminder, Oscar Piastri is sitting at 336 points. Lando Norris is sitting at 314. Max Verstappen is sitting at 281, with already 8 points up on both the drivers this weekend. Constructors, Mercedes at 333, Ferrari at 307, and Red Bull is now at 300. And there could be a chance that they will overtake Ferrari this weekend in the constructor championship. Time will tell in a couple of hours, but I'm Ricci. This is Andrew. That's it for this week's episode of the F1 podcast. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media channels I'm Ricci. That's Andrew. Tune in later this afternoon, which we'll watch the Austin Grand Prix or the United States Grand Prix, and we'll see who will top the Circuit of Americas. Bye, y'all.